Welcome back to the Freedom Kickstarter podcast. So today's guest is someone I'm really excited to talk to. We've got Dom Hodgson. So as always, I will throw it over to the guest to introduce themselves. So Dom, tell us a bit about yourself and what you do.
So I am a pet business coach and consultant. I am known as the Pet Biz Wiz, and I help pet service providers to make more money, have more time off, and be more impactful in their canine communities.
Amazing. I love it. So
You asked for an elevator pitch, buddy.
I did. I expected nothing less than a perfectly polished one from you. So yeah, I appreciate you delivering. So sometimes I like to start at the beginning, but I think what I thought would be interesting with you would be you've just got back from the States. So tell us a bit about kind of what you're doing out there and yeah, your sort of recent business forays.
Yeah, so I was in Orlando last week, and I delivered my first ever US-based 2-day dog daycare business boot camp. So I had about 30 business owners in the room, and I delivered some what I think were game-changing business, transformational additions they can make to their marketing machine, and that was the main reason I was there. I also attended a mastermind, and I also rode on some rides at Universal and Disney as well, because you've just got to do that, haven't you?
Yep, I think, well, when you're over there, you make the most of it. So
For sure,
no,
yeah.
I love that. Interesting, the US angle, because I know that's something you've not always done. You were sort of, like most of us, you stayed sort of localish before. But what was the transition to going more transatlantic with the business?
So yeah, interesting. I'll back up a second. So I had a dog adventure business I started in 2011, and that was sort of after being a sales rep for 10 years. So I started this dog adventure business, and that went pretty well. And then about kind of 5 years into my business journey, I started to coach other dog walkers. They were asking why I was doing what I was doing. And I was coaching dog walkers and dog trainers, and some dog daycare owners as well. And then what happened was about maybe 2.5 years ago, I saw a friend of mine was speaking at an event in the States. It was a Barkley production pet boarding and daycare expo. And I'd never heard of them before, but I just looked at it and I said, that's where I need to be, that these are, because I was getting more dog daycare owners in my world. I was getting a lot of great results with them, and I was like, well, how can I find more of these people? So that was where really the transition started, and I started to write for their magazine. I had a pretty early breakthrough, actually. They invited me to be a keynote at their event, and I pitched the idea of a podcast together. Why don't we do a podcast, which I now host, so the Pet Boarding and Daycare podcast with Dominic Hodgson. And it's kind of a strategy I learned from Harry Beckwith, his book, Selling the Invisible. He talks about this white hot center, how can you put yourself in the white hot center of an industry? And he actually uses the example of Nike with Michael Jordan, how they kind of got him on board before he was like a big thing. They could see where the puck was going, kind of thing, and they built their future business around this megastar, future megastar, and so this idea of like putting yourself at the white hot center is something that I teach my guys too, my coaching clients. It's actually not that difficult to position yourself as the number one expert business in town if you know what you're doing. And so just taking my own advice, and that's kind of what I did. And to the extent which now, like 90% of my business probably comes from dog daycare owners stateside. Yeah.
Amazing. What do you find the big differences are between US and UK in like a sales perspective, marketing perspective, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I just find in general, and this is no disrespect to any UK business owners, because I work with amazing ones, I know you do too, and we work with like the go-getters anyway, don't we, and that's what fires us up. But generally the kind of business, the attitude to business, is a lot more kind of positive and, just like go-getter and like, we can do this, and it's inspiring bumping into people who've built up and sold a business. Whereas over here, it's a bit more, tall poppy syndrome, isn't it? And obviously in the wider business community, it's very doom and gloom, and it's very kind of, if you listen to the news, which I don't, but I know that it's incredibly negative, like all of the time, and so I find it inspiring to put myself in an environment where I'm listening to success stories, and I'm with people who are the sky's the limit for them, and so they're the big differences. We talked about it earlier. I'm quite upbeat and energetic and enthusiastic with the content that I deliver, and I feel like that's kind of resonated with that market, quite easily, really.
Do you find the Britishness helps? Just because I think there's certain things that make it more difficult. So I remember I was on a call in one of the masterminds that I'm in recently, and I showed them a sales page, and I said, I need to make this a bit more American. What would you do? And one of the guys who's a really experienced marketer said, I don't know what that is. I was like, what do you mean? He said, that bit there, like next to the numbers. I was like, what, the pound sign? He went, yeah, I don't know what that is. So I definitely find there is like that where the rest of the world knows about America. America doesn't know about the rest of the world. But outside of that, I do definitely find that actually I think almost being British can be an advantage. They've got this, I think you just have a bit more trust automatically with Americans. I don't know if you found that at all.
Yeah, interesting. I was really worried about it. I was worried a number of things. Two main things were, like you said, the accent, and just the Britishness. Are they going to think we're like little and quaint and we, old fashioned or whatever? And then also I was worried about like, will what I teach, is it relevant, like over there? The second point, I needn't worry at all because every business has the same kind of problems. It doesn't matter whether they're a one facility or 10 or 100 facilities. They've got pricing issues, they've got follow-up issues, they've got all these different kinds of things, hidden money opportunities really in the business. But as far as the Britishness goes, yeah, it's definitely been an advantage. But, it's like a cheat code almost, isn't it? Like really. And it's similarly, I guess, for someone American coming over here, you're new, you're different, you've got that like exoticness maybe it's about you. So yeah, it's definitely been an advantage. And they love the swearing as well. They love raw dom. I started the boot camp. Is this a swearing podcast, Mike?
You're more than welcome to swear.
Okay, so I started the boot camp with "Welcome Motherfuckers," which went down very well, and then we played a testimonial video at the end because I was like pitching the mastermind, and as part of the testimonial video, we asked my existing mastermind members like one word to describe the mastermind, then one word to describe Dom. It's like a little bit of a way to finish off, and then after the video finished, I said. So when they said, one word described Dom, who was expecting someone to say cunt? And again, like the room just like erupts, and you have to be authentic with it. It's genuinely me. I'm not just putting that on, but they definitely appreciate the realness.
Well, it's a good disqualifier as well, isn't it?
Definitely.
As in,
yeah.
I'm not one who swears for the sake of swearing, but I think if you're someone who is offended by a well-placed, amusing swear word, we're probably not going to work together. Yeah. It's just not going to be a good fit. So, yeah, I love that for the fact that it is kind of being unapologetically you and just like, here's me. If you don't like me, that's fine. There'll be someone else for you. If you do, amazing. I'm probably the guy to help you.
Definitely.
So, it'd be cool to talk about the start of the journey. So, kind of take us all the way back before business. What were you doing?
Before business entirely, right? Way back.
Yeah, maybe not quite as far as being a baby and a child. We'll go from sort of into the working world, shall we say?
Okay, cool. Yeah. So way back in the day, like leaving school, all I really wanted to do from age 10 to like 20 was like theatre stuff. So I was big into performing and singing and dance lessons and all this kind of thing. And I was okay at it, I guess, but maybe wasn't good enough to like be professional. And then I met Beth. I was 18 when Beth and I met, and we had Alex. She was pregnant with Alex about 3 weeks into the relationship, so that was that's been it. We're still together, Mike. So she's waiting for me outside in the car now. So we must be doing something right. But and that was like tremendous. It just changed the trajectory of my life really, and I went and got a proper job. So a friend of mine worked for Imperial Tobacco. And she got me a sales rep job, and I found that I was really good at selling, just talkative and good communicator. So did that for 10 years and didn't really want to do it for another 30. We had adopted a dog a dog de Bordeaux, who ended up being a big star of my business and on the front cover of my books and everything else. But to give something back to the rescue, I used to walk the dogs in my local shelter just to give something back, really, just like something to do in my spare time. And that was where I had the idea for the dog adventure business, really. So did a lot of research, wasn't very impressed with what I was seeing. This is like back in 2011. Did a lot of research stateside as well at what people were doing over there, and this sort of concept of like, okay, could we do something a bit different rather than just taking a dog for a walk around the block? Lots of people getting pedigree dogs. They shouldn't really be stuck at home, all day while people are working. So Pack Leader Dog Adventures was born. And I did two things right with that business. I was niched. So I'd called it adventures instead of walks. And people say, well, what's the difference? And I say, well, you charge a lot more for an adventure. and we did a lot more as well with the dogs. But it's like selling the sizzle, and this is what I teach my guys now. You don't want to be a dog groomer. You want to be a dog stylist, You don't want to have a daycare. You want to have a dog day school. You know what I mean? We need to they're so easy to be different if you put a bit of thought and effort into it. So so did adventures and charged premium prices from day one when I didn't really have any right to, really, given the amount of dog knowledge that I had. And I went on a big dog training journey to learn about the right way to handle dogs. Launched an online store, which was a total disaster. Lost a ton of money on that. And big education for me as well, because I kind of learned that I didn't know everything about business, so went on a big marketing journey at that point and, found people online like Ben Settle and John McCulloch, whose group I joined, whose mastermind I joined eventually. And, just learned about copy and all these different kinds of things and emails and, how to structure a business. And, from 2015, things changed dramatically for me then. I wrote my first book. I created an online dog training program way before Zoom became, was like a thing. Some of us were still doing it back in the day, weren't we? And it's just that the journeys I continued from there, really. And I think maybe from 2016, I really discovered that my passion was really helping people with their businesses, So I thought my passion was helping people with their dogs, but I realized I could have more impact if I could help pet businesses to be more impactful with their services. So, and I love it. I absolutely love what I do. I love creating content. I love speaking. I love coaching. I love seeing people get results, really.
Yeah, and I think the one thing that I really like about your style of marketing is, as you say, it's different. You're looking for the thing that it's not what everyone else is doing, and you're trying to get a piece of that market. It's almost creating maybe not an entirely new market, but like a new sub-niche or a new angle. So the thing I find with that, though, is often people are resistant to do that. They're like, oh, I don't want, I want to play it safe, or I'm worried about going too outside the norms of my industry. So have you got any advice for people who kind of need to get over that, basically?
Get over what exactly?
Just sort of the fear of standing out, I guess, fear of being different.
Yeah. I think, nothing grows in the comfort zone, does it? Like that, it's a bit trite phrase, but it's true, like you make all of the big changes in your business or your life, really, when you do something that you've never really done before, and it's usually something that fills you with fear, and that might be as simple as joining a gym, from a weight loss or from a wellness perspective, or from a business, it's like, well, you've got this, with me as an example, you've got this pretty small part of your business right now, but you actually really like working with these people and you seem to be getting great results. So, would it be an idea to forget about the 80% and go for this 20%? And it is scary. It is scary for sure. But, business is adventure's been a theme throughout my whole business, really, with Pack Leader Dog Adventures. And I've had so much fun trying things, even the online store debacle, which was 2 years of my life and tens of thousands of pounds. And I look back now, there was a lot of tears and frustration and everything, but it was a massive, big learning curve, and I love that now. To your point about, people who advice for people who I've coached there's opportunities in your business now that you can't see, or you're too close to the wood to see the trees. And when I'm working with someone and we find an area of the business that is like unexploited, and we dig in there and we help them to build it up. It's there's just so many opportunities in business. And I think you start a business because you don't want to be told what to do. When I was working for Imperial Tobacco, I went for promotions and didn't get them, and maybe I wasn't the right person for the job, but when you start a business, you think, I'm going to do what I want to do, and I know I'm going to work hard. I'm going to work harder than I ever have, but there's so many opportunities in business, go for it. If you feel a little bit of fear about something, that's probably telling you that it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, I'd agree. And I remember this would have been, I think I was probably about 19. I remember having a conversation with my mum actually at a coffee shop, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do at the time. And I just remember saying to her, I don't actually mind what I do, and I'm happy to work hard. I just want something where I can control everything. Not in in a controlling way, but more in I'm happy to get up at 5 if I'm getting up to do something that is going to grow me as a person that I'm going to enjoy. I don't mind doing weekend work. And I think that point that you make is, exactly it. Like, you don't, if there's a light at the end of the tunnel in terms of I can do something I enjoy, gives me freedom, lets me work with people I like, then, I think you owe it to yourself to pursue that, really. Why do you think the online store didn't take off?
I think that I didn't know enough about business. Like, I knew enough to get my local service business going, so it was enough to be premium priced and to position it as something different to everybody else. But as far as the online stuff goes, I just didn't know enough about anything, really. I didn't understand the cost of acquiring a customer, or how important follow-up sales were going to be. And we did a lot of silly things. We did a lot of silly things like spending money on like ads and stuff that would end up selling like a Kong, but no follow-up sales and stuff from there. Stuff when you look back now, you think like, what an idiot I was, but so there was a ton of mistakes. What I will say is, by the time we were maybe 18 months into the journey, and I was like banging my head against the wall, like thinking, is this ever going to work? That was actually as well a moment that I thought, do you know what? I actually hate this business. Like, I hate ordering stock, packaging it up, and then sending it out to people. And I know people build fortunes on that kind of business, but I hated it. It just wasn't me at all, And so I think even if it had been a success, my real passion wasn't in it. I just kind of did it because I thought that was a good next step, because I didn't know about any of the other avenues that I eventually ended up going down.
Yeah, and it's that thing where I think early on in a business or career, you sometimes do have to do those things you don't really want to do. But the more you get into it, the more I sort of unashamedly just say, I don't want to do that, so I'm not doing it. Yeah. And I think there's a lot to be said for that. And I wouldn't ever say that's the attitude to have all the time with things. But I was at an event last year, and Jay Abraham spoke about it. And that was one of his biggest bits of advice was, if you don't want to do something, don't do it. If you've got a client who asks you to do something that you can't do or don't want to do, you could outsource it if you want. He's like, don't change your principles, though. He said, because you're spending time, mental energy, maybe even money to learn that. Is it something you really want to be doing? Probably not. And I was like, I actually agree with a lot of that, really. So as you said, if it's looking back, if it was, something that didn't take off, but actually that saved you from having a successful business, in quotes, that where now you'd be, packing stuff, shipping it, ordering stock, 7, 8, 10, however many hours a day, it's probably for the best, I suppose.
Yeah, you don't have to. Very good name drop, by the way. Very jealous, Jay Abraham. That was a very big fan of his work as well. You don't have to order very many pairs of rough wear dog shoes and then send them off, and then people say, well, I've ordered the wrong size, and then that happens like 3 times. I'm like, this business is not for me. Maybe it was a bad choice at the start, but a good learning curve.
Talking about big marketing names, I know that you're a self-confessed marketing geek. So was that something, were you always interested in marketing stuff, or was it, something sparked? I know you said at the start of your own business you kind of got into it, but what was it that got you interested in marketing in the first place?
I think once the online store, once I put a pin in that, I said, right, whatever I do next, I need to know more about the whole marketing process, because I'd outsourced a lot of stuff, and it hadn't, a lot of it hadn't worked, and I probably didn't think this at the time, but certainly it didn't take me long to think, yeah, it didn't work, but it was still my fault, It was all like, I'm in charge. It was all, I've spent the money and it hasn't worked, so it's my fault. So I didn't want to have that feeling anymore. I was like, I need to know about marketing. I need to know how it works. And so I delved into the murky world of online marketing, and which is, it is shark infested, but there's also a lot of great people out there as well. And I think similarly to what happened with my dog training business, like I found good people pretty quickly that I did really resonate with. So like I said, I joined Ben Settle's list and got his newsletter, and joined Paul Mort had a great podcast out at the time. I was listening to that. That's how I got introduced to John, whose list I ended up joining and ended up being in John's mastermind for a year. Obviously like yourself through Dan Meredith and stuff as well. It kind of just like resonated then, and for me, a lot of roads like lead back to like Dan Kennedy, So a lot of the people who I'm kind of connect with are self-confessed Kennedy people type of thing, or even if it's a couple of steps removed. And I just, like I said, I just fell in love with it. I really fell in love with the idea of copy and like creating an information business as well. I think it's one of the coolest things you can do is to create an information business. Mine is more of a coaching business now, but it's still info based, and I think because I've had the experience of working with stock, and so like now I don't have any stock, and it's like more of a dream for me really, but yeah.
Well, I guess there's a couple of things. One is it's creating something from nothing. In effect, it is what's in my head, how can I sell that? Which I always find fascinating. Okay, you need a deliverable like a course or a service or something, but even sort of 50 years ago, that wasn't really a thing in business. Like you didn't, you had to have a product to sell for the most part, or you had to actually go and do something like build a wardrobe or write someone's will and they paid you for it.
Yeah.
But also I just think the idea of persuasion, because I got into this thinking I never saw myself as a persuasive person, a confident person. Like my first ventures into personal training, I couldn't sell for shit, basically. I was just so nervous. So for me, when I got into marketing stuff, and I think the first book I read properly on it was The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss, which is actually very light on strategy, but it just showed me there was a different way to do things, and it was kind of this
big
whole
idea.
The whole, my world opened up from reading that book, and I still remember where I was when I read it. I was actually on holiday at Centre Parks, and I remember reading it sitting by the pool thinking, this is crazy, this is what I need to be doing. And much like yourself, I kind of geek out on it, and I still look back to a lot of the old school stuff. Like the new stuff, there's some really clever people there now, but I just think those old school principles, just apart from a few nuances, they've just not really changed. It's still, that for me is where people need to start, with Dan Kennedy, the Jay Abraham, the Eugene Schwartz, go back and read old Ogilvy ads, all that kind of stuff, because A, it's just interesting, but B, I just don't think a lot of it has actually moved on that much, to be honest.
100% not. Nah, definitely, yeah. And even like, personal development space, like Earl Nightingale and stuff like that, like you will save yourself a hell of a lot of time if you just read and reread some of those, classics.
And was it like a conscious process? Did you think, I'm going to sit down and study this stuff? Or was it just more like, I'm interested in it, so, I'll read, sign up to X many email lists, I'll read a bit in my spare time, or were you really like a student of marketing, so to speak?
I think I pretty quickly thought, I like this, and half the battle is, if it's enjoyable, it doesn't feel like work, does it? So there was two things. One of them was I plugged into a marketer called Veronica Pullen, actually, and I did a course with her where I got my first dog started to build a list, and got my first course up and running, and then I kind of wrote my first book and sold that to my list, and everything. It was like everything was just built like a landing page, I had my 33 ideas was my lead magnet, which John had helped me with. And it was just that. It was like 33 emails in a row. And that built my entire coaching business really from that. I never really had a website or anything else for about 2 years, and created an inner circle with different like coaching levels and stuff like that. And eventually I had to, invest in a website and stuff. But, yeah, I just loved that whole process of like being able to communicate, like you said, persuade people, and resonate with them, and just build a relationship, like trust, yeah.
I think there's something quite mysterious almost now about kind of not having a fully branded website, or not having everything all over social media. I'm a big fan of using those assets, and I use them myself. But like the guy I've mentioned before, who I invest in, John, he's basically like 2 emails a week. That's all he does for marketing. He's got Facebook, but he solely uses it for personal stuff. And he probably posts twice a year. No Instagram, no LinkedIn, no nothing. He's got a simple one-page website, but I want to buy everything that he sells because it's almost like, it feels like when I read something from someone like that, they don't have to try that hard. Whereas other people, when they're doing their sort of 5 posts a day on Instagram and stories every 90 minutes and they've got everything branded, it's like, I like that and I can see why that works. But it's almost like you're really trying to sell to me. Whereas someone else are like, yeah, I email twice a week. If you want to buy it, there's the Google Doc here that tells you about it. I'm like, okay, you've got my attention with that, because what are you doing that means you can succeed in a way that's so much more low key than everyone else out there?
It's it's like not trying to look kind of, you're too desperate, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's positioning. If you can do that, if you can act busy or nonchalant before you are, it's hugely powerful. We did the boot camp last week. There was a lot of different business owners in the room. Some had 2-3 facilities, some had 5-6, and one guy just started. And I was talking about pricing and premier positioning and stuff like that. And we're talking about scarcity, and I was telling everybody, you want to appear busy all the time. You want to look busy, and I said, even you, Thomas, even you, like, even though you're not busy and you don't feel busy and you don't feel like you can act busy, you want to project this idea of like, spaces are limited, we're very busy, blah, blah. It's just like, just what you want to do, because it's attractive, isn't it?
Yeah.
People want what they can't have.
Yeah, definitely. The other thing you mentioned was things like your books and newsletters. And that's one thing I love about your business, is that you don't neglect the physical side of it. What what do you love about still doing, like, I hesitate to use the word old school because it's still very relevant, but what do you love about having a physical side of what you do?
Yeah, so on the book side of things, a couple of things about writing a book. I think I still think it's one of the main authority certificates you can, endorse upon your business is having a book. And I did that for my dog training business. I did it when I was coaching dog walkers and then dog trainers, and now in the dog daycare space, like we have the latest one is how to Disnify your doggy daycare, and it just gives you instant credibility. It's like all of the cliches that people say about books, having it is true, and it is the best business card you'll ever have. Like as soon as I connect with somebody, I ask for their address and I send them a book. And I'm not bothered if they don't even read it, I'm not. I just, I want them to know that I've written a book. And because it's hugely powerful, and probably less so for people in our space because, we know the marketing reasons behind it and stuff. But generally, it's a really big thing. And it's just great to have that physical, it's like an authentic certificate of your expertise, really. And in a similar way, stuff like newsletters. I like doing. I'm a firm believer in again Kennedy. Look what everybody else is doing and do the opposite. So if everyone's doing socials and everything else, you should do the opposite if you want to stand out. And so that's why I've been doing newsletters for a long time now. This year the newsletter that goes out to my coaching circle, that'll be the 100th edition will go out later this year. Nice. Monthly, so that's something I'll be pretty proud of. But also just free newsletters. And all of my guys have done this, all of my smart guys have done this. Dog daycare owners, trainers, walkers, groomers, pet therapists. Even if you're only doing a couple of newsletters a year, it's just something else that nobody else has. And whether you send it out to a prospect or whether you include it as part of an onboarding pack that you have for a new client, or whether you, get somebody talking about the White Hot Centre, these are great things that you can distribute via other pet businesses in your town, and you've just got all these little certificates of authenticity like floating around in your town. And people don't throw newsletters away for the most part. They really don't. They'll sit, it'll get delivered and they pick it up, and most people know it's from me straight away because it's got something on there that tells them, and then they'll open it up and they'll have a quick glance at it, and then it'll sit by the front door, and then later on in the day they'll take it into the kitchen, and and they'll stick it on the fridge, or they'll take it upstairs into their bedroom. Some people read them in the bath and things. Well, it's pretty intimate, isn't it? And it's not like you're in the bath with them, but you kind of are as well. And that kind of stickiness factor to paper and ink is more relevant now. It is old-fashioned, or it is old school, but it's more relevant now than ever.
Well, it's like that thing that initially when email came out, that was the cool thing because people would get a lot of posts through the door, but an email was something new and different. Now you hear lots of numbers, but I think I heard something like 390 marketing emails per day the average person gets, which you're not going to read many of those at all. Whereas if you've got something that comes through, for me, I've been doing mine, about 4.5 years, I think. And the goal is always to make a profit from it. But I would run it even at break even because I think, well, first of all, it keeps me top of mind much more than an email because exactly as you said, someone has it and it will move from room to room, or they've got a big pile of them. So once a week, they might walk past an issue and all of a sudden they're thinking about copywriting, they're thinking about my name, my business, all that kind of stuff. I also think it's people like to post that kind of stuff on social media as well, especially like you said, if you've got an envelope designed and all that kind of thing. Mine has a coffee ring on the envelope, and actually, funny story, one guy said that once had a new postman, and the postman knocked on the door, handed it over and said, "I'm really sorry, someone in the office has left their mug on this," which I thought was fantastic. But also, it's like other people as well. Okay, learning to write copy is a bit niche, but if they've got that in their house and someone comes around and goes, "Oh, what's that?" Well, it's someone else who's now knows about the Freedom Kickstarter, coffee shop copywriter stuff. So
definitely,
I'm 100% on board. That I think it's the whole whenever everyone else is zigging, you should zag. And actually, a print newsletter or anything physical is actually a fantastic way to do that when everything now is so digital. Really,
definitely. You said they have a great pass along value. People can do it, and to echo what you just said, it's exactly the same as what I say to my guys is, when they talk about how many should I get printed, I'm like, hey, look, if you just get 50 printed for your existing clients, it's still worth doing. Because there's a value to it. There's a value attached to, like you said, once you learn to write copy, it forces you to learn to write copy as well. That's like a book. Writing a book you really have to think about, well, for dog training as an example, or even marketing, okay, well, how do I train a dog? Why do I train the dog that way, and why do I do it that way? It forces you to get really good at what it is that you do when you put it into a written format, a book format. But the newsletter, it's just so it's so different, and we've been sort of Facebook pals and whatnot for a long time, and you've spoken on my podcast, you've been to a couple of my events and spoke at my mastermind, and then it was just before Christmas, and I've been on your email list for a long time, and the offer came that was just the right offer at the right time for me, and invested. Then I got your newsletter, which had another little offer at the back of it as well, which I read to the end, and I scanned the QR code and I took that offer too, and we're going to do a consulting day in early March, but it's just, it's a vital part of the mix. And if you're not doing it, you're missing out potentially on, just so many opportunities,
Yeah, and I think something like that, and I say this not having written a book, that's going to be my next question actually, but something like a book, it can kind of give you the equivalent of 5 years worth of authority in potentially a couple of months. And that's not fake authority. That's just you saying, I know something about this thing. I'm going to write something about that, which, because the friction for doing that is higher than just posting it online, I think prospects or anyone else sees that as much more of a calling card than they would if you had, a perfectly curated Instagram feed, let's say. Beyond the theme of the book, lots of people, I'd say basically everyone in the business space wants to have a book, but very few people do. So what advice would you give to someone who's thinking, I really need to get around to that, but I haven't done so yet?
Yeah, I mean, you need to get out your own way. That's the thing. It helps if you don't care what people think. It will catapult your progress, like you say. You can leapfrog, and what you just said, exactly the same thing happened for me back in like 2016. I went from local nobody to national, respected and kind of sought after, really, dog trainer, because I wrote a book and I spoke at an event. And that was literally it. It happened virtually overnight. I wrote the book and that did pretty well. And then I did a seminar at someone's dog training facility, just in Manchester, actually. And like literally on the way home, I practically had a tour booked from that. It was that fast. And then when I transitioned to the coaching space, again, I wrote a coaching book, for dog walkers. Then when I've moved into the dog daycare space, we did one for that. We've got the Enrich University program now as well. We'll be doing an enrichment book. It's just like it's just an easy way to do it. I think for most people, how I would probably recommend you, there's a number of different ways you can do a book. If you're already doing emails, you could just take your 100 best emails, and just call them stories, add an introduction and a conclusion chapter. I know someone who did that. I know a couple of people who've done that as well. A good way to do a book is to kind of, if you have some kind of signature system, that you use for copy or for puppy training or something like that. And if you don't have one, you should create one, because then it makes your service unique. And then your book can be just mapping out your signature system, along with a bunch of stories as well. They're crucial. You always want to have stories in there to keep people entertained. And then, the book is a bridge. The book is the bridge to the sale. That's the way to look at it. You're never going to be the Wall Street, whatever it is. Sorry, the New York Times 100 bestseller list and stuff. I don't know. I would love to, but it's not going to happen. But that's not what it's for. It's for the authority, and it's my best customers come from books. Traditionally have come from books, or podcasts and stuff as well now. Because we share a lot of personal stories on podcasts. There'll be somebody will come into my world, Mike, in the next 5 years from this, probably. Some random dog business owner will listen to this, and unfortunately, Mike, they won't buy from you. They'll seek me out and they'll come, and that's just how it works, you know. And similarly, you on my pod will work exactly the same way, But that's what the book does. Someone spent 2 or 3 hours with you, in the book. It's powerful and it's personal stories. And it doesn't need to be very long, Like my first one was 230 pages. The first business book was Walk Yourself Wealthy, the dog walker's business book, and that was like less than 100 pages, And I did it in 3 months, that one, and that's probably been one of the most powerful books I've written as far as impact on my business.
I suppose some of this is attracting people in the way that I'm thinking how to frame this, but a lot of what we do requires commitment from clients and customers, and they need to be invested a bit more long term as well. Like, yes, we try and get them quick wins, but at the same time, you and I both know that business results don't happen overnight. And I think that's another reason why long form content is so powerful, because we don't want people who turn up to day one of our program and go, right, when's that first 10 grand going to hit my bank? Because you're like, hold on, take a step back. We need to look at some stuff first. And I think sometimes that's where people get caught away, especially with social media. They're like, oh, every clip needs to be under 30 seconds because otherwise I'm not getting attention. I think you don't necessarily want just attention. You want someone who, will sit and watch an hour-long podcast with you. And then they might go and watch a YouTube video. They might read that book. It's like my webinar that I run to Cold Traffic is 90 minutes long, because I think, well, I've got a 6-week course where every week is about 3 hours of video. Granted, I could probably do it shorter, and we're testing a shorter one at the moment. But for me, I think if someone can't be bothered to sit through a 90-minute webinar, the chances of them buying at a higher price are probably relatively slim. So actually, it comes down to that idea again of, okay, if you write a whole book, it might be that out of 100 people who'd watch your last 3 Instagram reels, maybe only 15 of those read that book. But I would put decent money on the fact that most of those who get to the end of the book are probably at some stage going to buy something else. Whereas the 100 people who watch your Instagram reels, you might get a few sales, but percentage-wise, it's going to be a whole lot lower.
Yeah, totally, yeah. And, social media is, and I use it like you do, but it's all of the things that make it good, make it bad.
Yeah.
Like, it's cheap, it's free, it's easy to consume. Well, yeah, so it is for everybody else as well, And, if you can have these longer form authority pieces of content out there, be they webinars or TV style interviews like this, or books or guides or whatever, it acts like a filter, and you get people who are looking for more, and then you get that, like the personal connection, so if my old mentor John always used to say, we want to be in like the relationship business rather than the transactional business, and how do you get in the relationship business? Well, you share stuff about yourself, you share your likes and your dislikes and personal stories about yourself, so I'm always talking about chicken stories and stuff like that, and it's like, and people love it, people like, they connect with it. And every time you put a personal tidbit out there, it acts like a bit of a hook, so whether it's me talking about chickens, or the fact that I used to work for Imperial Tobacco, or the fact that Beth used to be a teacher, or the fact that Toby used to do dancing or something, like, these are the things that people latch onto, when they're looking at me and 100 of the coaches, they might not do this consciously, but they're like, oh, Dom has chickens. Their subconscious is like, well, you want chicken, you would like to have chickens, so maybe you should listen to Dom, or, Beth used to be a teacher and she didn't like it, and she left and joined Dom's business. Well, you used to have a job that you didn't like. And these are all these things that are going on that I think a lot of like modern marketers and stuff, they miss all of that.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I found that one of the best ways I've heard described is another copywriter, Ed Ray, shared this with me, and he said that he works with clients and they say, oh, I want, that sales email did really well for us, just write more of those. And he said, but the sales email is like the slam dunk in basketball. He said, you don't just make slam dunks. Like, there's 8, 9, 10 passes beforehand before the slam dunk. He's like, those 8 to 10 passes, they're your story emails, your personal bonding, your things that are 100% value and reciprocity. It's like, you don't get the sales without doing that stuff up front. And I think people often neglect that, where it's like, you will do stuff that's much more sales driven. I will do stuff that's much more sales driven. But we put in the work, so to speak, with all the other stuff before that, whether it is talking about your chickens, me talking about my, the ridiculous amount of money I spend in coffee shops, my obsession with Wes Anderson films, boring people to tears with ultra running stories. It's like that should be part of your business. Don't hide that stuff away, because even if people don't love your hobbies as much as you do, actually it's those quirks that mean you are different from other people who are offering a similar product as well.
Definitely. And I think it was with Dan that I learned this, like, it not only does it make you different, it makes you real. It makes you, especially when we think about when someone discovers our business, and then this bricks and mortar businesses, or when they discover you online, that the trust factor, it doesn't exist, does it, at that point, and people are looking for reasons to get in touch with you, apart from the fact that their dog's just bitten someone, or their boiler's broken down, or they know their sales page sucks. They have reasons. They have actual business reasons, but then they're looking for other reasons as well. Why can I get in touch with this person? So, Dan talks about all these details. They just make you more real. They make you more like human, and that's what that connection is. That's the start of it anyway. You still have to have the tools, and you still have to be able to deliver. But you just, you surround yourself with people who you really enjoy working with. And we talked about the boot camp just when we came up here, and like, you said, how did it go? I was like, it was a dream, like, I mean, there was a lot of work went into it, but it couldn't have gone any better. And I was just so happy to be in a room with people who were lapping up everything I was teaching them, and like a bunch of them have gone on to join the mastermind as well, which is great. And I'm looking forward to finding out more about their businesses. And it's just fun working with people who you get on with.
Definitely. So on the theme of the mastermind, the bootcamp, then what's next? More of the same or anything different?
Yeah, we have our Enrich University program, which is like a marketing toolkit in a box for dog daycares that we launched about 6 months ago. So we're looking to really scale that up now because that has huge scaling potential. I want to get the mastermind launched. I want to get it filled this month, and then probably build up to. I'll repeat the boot camp. I think I'll do another one of them maybe in the autumn or the fall, as they call it over there, Mike. And yeah, maybe build up to some kind of big event next year. I'm just trying to build a business around with things I enjoy doing. And I love speaking. I just love helping people, and I do my best stuff, I think, when I'm standing in front of people talking and getting fired up. Yeah, something like that, and we'll see what happens. It's been a real adventure the last, the whole thing, but certainly the last 18 months. It's been really good. So we'll see where it goes, but I'm having a lot of fun.
Amazing, I love it. So I'll do the final quickfire 5 in a minute, but first of all, where's the best place or places for people to get in touch with you?
Yeah, sure. So the website is petbusinessmarketing.com. There's a bunch of different lead magnets and stuff on there where you can, join my list and get in touch if you need to. I host the Pet Boarding and Daycare podcast with Dominic Hodgson, and I also have the Poodle to Pitbull Pet Business podcast as well. And Pet Biz Marketing is like the handle for most of the socials too.
Perfect. I should put all those in the description. So yeah, final 5 questions. Number 1, if you could gift any business, copywriting, marketing, or mindset book to someone, what would it be and why?
Just one. So the easy one is to say any Dan Kennedy book. I think that would be a great place for anybody to start. The most impactful book probably for me, maybe the last year, would be 10x is easier than 2x. I think that's really forced me to, just really identify what is the big 10x opportunity. Certain stages in your business, you have lots of different opportunities as what's the best one to pick. So not so much of a quick fire answer. Sorry, Mike. The quick fire answer is 10x is easier than 2x.
Perfect. Interestingly, a client mentioned that to me the other day, so that's actually at the top of my reading list at the moment. So yeah, good to hear. Question number 2, we're going for a coffee and I'm buying. What's your order?
It's an Americano.
Nice and simple. I like it.
Yeah. Or if I'm tired, a hazelnut mocha with whipped cream.
Very nice. Question number 3, you're in charge of the internet for a day and you can get rid of one social media platform. Which one are you going to choose?
I'd say TikTok.
Cool. Good answer. Question number 4, you're going to have a dinner party and you can invite 3 people, living or dead. Who are your guests going to be?
I'll invite Dan Kennedy, for sure. Michael Scott from The Office, USA, and yourself, Mike, so you wouldn't need to reserve a chair. There you go.
That's very kind. I think that's also our first
bit of a callback there, joke for anyone not in the room.
Yes, we were discussing how I seemed to drop in. I want a reservation to every dinner party. So that's very kind of you, Dom. And final question would be, anyone who wants to do what you're doing, get to where you are, what's the best bit of advice you would give them?
I would say be premium. That would be my biggest advice. There's somebody's going to be the premium priced garage, hairdresser, copywriter, dog walker in your town. Make sure it's you, because everything is so much easier.
Fantastic. Thank you, mate. Really appreciate that.
You're welcome. It's been tremendous. Thank you.
Nice one. Thanks again, guys. Really appreciate you watching. So I'll drop all those links in the description. Any questions for me, any questions for Dom, also pop them down below. Like, share, subscribes, all that kind of stuff. Very much appreciated. But yeah, I shall catch you next time around.